UB Bulls fans, well, stop if you heard this one before. UB with a big lead in the second half looked like they were going to just cruise to an easy victory of bowl eligibility. And no, this is not a repeat. This is a recurring nightmare. Unfortunately, the UB Bulls blow it again as they fall 30-27 in overtime to the Kent State Golden Flashes. Coming up on this edition of Bullseye Nation, the postgame, I will talk about it with both Brad Riter and Norm Rodriguez. Give you a little bit of a surprise of what could be in store for next week's episode. We'll give you some highlights and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. A brand new edition of Bullseye Nation starts right now. Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Bullseye Nation, the UB Bulls postgame show. I am John Karuba, but I got to tell you right now, I feel a whole lot more like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. You know, the UB Bulls, they continue to have the big lead, and ultimately, once again, they cough it up now 2 weeks in a row that UB has had a double-digit lead entering the second half, and both times unable to close it out. And I think what makes this one even worse is, A, it didn't mean anything, the game for Kent State, because this was their last game of the season, and they were eliminated from bowl eligibility after they lost a couple weeks ago. And I think the other part of it that makes it even worse, this one happened in the blink of an eye. If you remember the game against Central Michigan, the second half, that first play, the first drive that Chippewas had early in the third quarter was a long touchdown run. Right from the get-go of the second half, you could start to sense danger. The thing about this one is not only were you at home, but also you controlled the third quarter and most of the fourth. This one came out of basically nowhere, a blink of an eye, because with 6.5 left to go in regulation, UB still led 24-10. That's right, up by 2 touchdowns with less than 7 minutes to go. And they had Kent State third and long deep inside their own territory. And the UB defense just completely fell apart. They allowed their only real long bomb pass of the game. And within no time, Kent State then took it right down the field, got a touchdown. They went for 2, oddly enough, but they missed it. So UB was still up by 8. But the Bulls, you know, give them credit. Matt Myers was outstanding today. The quarterback sneak, UB went with a dual quarterback system of Matt Myers and Cole Snyder, and Myers was really to run. And in the second and third quarters especially, he was outstanding. It seemed like every time he called his number, it worked. It gave UB a new set of downs, moved the chains. However, in the fourth quarter, the Golden Flashes, to their credit, started catching on to it, but UB absolutely refused to adjust. And I don't know who you want to put that on. I don't know if you want to call it on the UB offensive coordinator. I don't know if you want to call it on head coach Mo Lindquist or anybody you want to put that blame on. But Kent State was ready. And right after Kent State did score a touchdown to make it a one-possession game, UB then goes 3 and out. And in addition, a couple of those were the quarterback sneaks. But by that point, the Golden Flashes were expecting it after getting bashed all second half long and the second quarter with it. So they stacked the box and they just absolutely stuffed Myers. And so Kent State absolutely, when they got the ball back again, felt totally incompetent and totally in control of this one. And it wasn't a surprise when they went right back down the field, scored another touchdown with inside 2 minutes left to go, converted the 2-point conversion to tie it at 24-all and send us to overtime, where another debacle then occurred when on the coin toss, that's right, the coin toss, UB wanted to go second. They wanted to defer. They wanted Kent State to get the ball first. But UB and James Patterson unfortunately misspoke and said straight out that he wanted the defense to go second, but what he said was defense first. So in essence, the officials took that to mean that UB wanted the ball first, which was not what Coach Lindquist wanted at all. He wanted to kick to Kent State and have them go first. He ran onto the field trying to prevent that call from being made, but it was too late. And so because of that error, UB ended up getting the ball first. But I didn't really have a problem with that. I didn't really have an issue with taking the ball first. Even though that's not actually what the Bulls wanted, it was still okay. But the bigger problem was for UB, they only tried one long pass the entire game, and it was late in the first quarter to Justin Marshall, a play that was called incomplete. But I actually think Marshall caught the ball at around the 5-yard line, would have been a walk-in touchdown, but then coughed it up out of the back of the end zone, which would have been a turnover. So that would have been even more of a killer. But here's what the main point of that is. UB, they stopped going to the long passing game after that. And really, you can't say Kent State defended it well, because if Marshall hangs on to that, that's a touchdown. So for them to totally just get away and abandon the passing game made no sense to me as far as the long bombs. They showed they could have success over the top against the Golden Flashes, but they totally went away from it. And that was extremely unfortunate because down the stretch, it was very evident what UB wanted to do. And Kent State, to their credit, stacked the box, they caught on, and they limited the UB offense. And quite frankly, I don't know what goes on with this team, but for some reason, when they get these multiple score leads in the second half, I don't know if they just let their foot off the gas or if they get more nervous and tense, but it just looks like they turn into a totally different team, and it looks like they just pretty much forget how to play. And another killer was that, just like last week in the Central Michigan game, and we're going to talk to Brad Riter about this in a little bit, but for the UB Bulls, last week against the Chippewas, there was a key turning point in the second half, and that was when UB turned the ball over. Did not mean that Central Michigan had to go the length of the field and score a touchdown. The UB defense could have stepped up. Well, they didn't, and ultimately UB suffered the heartbreaking defeat. Now let's fast forward to today, fourth quarter. Now this was actually, I think, a good call from head coach Mo Lindquist, because he was going for the kill right here at 24-10 with around 8 minutes or so to go in the fourth. UB picked a Kent State pass off, and they had it at the Kent State 30. Well, they're only able to get one first down, but they were certainly in field goal range. It was very windy at UB Stadium. It really was. But McNulty has been so great at field goals this season. On a 4th and 2, I was worried that Lindquist was going to go for it, but he made the smart call to end up just taking the points. Unfortunately, because of the wind, McNulty's kick was up and it actually curved to the right. Originally looked like it was going to split the middle, split the uprights, then curved to the right and hit the upright no good. But even with that being the case, it was still 24-10 UB. They killed off a couple minutes. It did not mean that the Golden Flashes had to go down the field and score a touchdown. If UB's defense steps up there, which again, we're always hearing about the pedigree of Coach Lindquist and his defense, well, if they step up right there, hold them to even just a field goal, I think we're having a totally different conversation again today. But once more, what happens? Kent State on a 3rd and long drills them with a long bomb pass down that right sideline, and the rest, they say, is history. And they come back and beat UB in overtime 30-27. And this is yet another time the UB Bulls defense had an opportunity to step up and were unable to slam the door shut. And the thing to me that's amazing, that's so frustrating, the UB defense in the first 3 quarters, night and day, I mean night and day, from what we saw in the second half against Central Michigan. They played so well over the first 3 quarters, held the Golden Flashes to just 10 points total, and to just totally implode like that in the last 6 minutes plus of the game. Absolutely heartbreaking. And now, for the 4th straight week, we are sitting here talking about needing another win to gain bowl eligibility. It is unbelievable. The good news is you get an Akron Zips team that I think is one of the worst in the conference, and it's a makeup of the game that got postponed due to the snowstorm from a couple weeks ago. It's going to be Friday, December 2nd, next Friday, 1 o'clock kickoff from UB Stadium. UB, it's simple. Win, you go to a bowl game. Lose, and you're done for the year. And it would be an absolute catastrophe for Coach Lindquist and this UB football program. Think about it. Last year, they ended the season on a multi-game losing streak, and now they're on the brink of doing so yet again. So UB really needs to get everything in gear here, clean up what's gone wrong in the second halves, and start to find a way to gain momentum. Because if they could find a way to win not only next week against Akron, but then win a bowl game, the third in program history, it'd be a nice way to salvage, which right now is looking like a massive collapse of a season. So for UB, we know what's at stake. And for Akron, they had a 9-game losing streak, but figures, isn't this UB's luck in the second half? Just when we need to beat them, Akron busts out of their 9-game losing streak. They win earlier today at Northern Illinois. And so they come in with a little bit of momentum now at 2-9. And the thing is going to be for Akron, once again, like Kent State, nothing to play for. They can play free and easy, and the Bulls have to be able to guard against that. If I was Coach Lindquist, I would just tell the Bulls, go out there, have fun, play UB football, play the game you love to play, come at it with Akron's mindset. You know, if you start thinking about, well, now we need to win this game for the bowl and all the pressure, that's exactly what Akron wants the UB Bulls to think. So for the Bulls, it's going to be interesting to see how they clean it up. And I'm going to make a little bit of a Sabres reference here real quick before we get to the stats of the game. And, you know, if you remember the Sabres in the 90s under head coach Lindy Ruff, you know, if the Sabres were perennially a playoff team, and what would Lindy Ruff do if he was playing against a team that he knew was out of it and the Sabres needed to win? Well, a lot of times what he would do is he would send out Rob Ray, the big enforcer, to go chase around some of the other team's best players. And to me, that's kind of what I think Lindquist should have done, because Kent State in the fourth quarter switched quarterbacks. That's right. They switched quarterbacks. They went to a freshman in Tommy Ulatowski, who absolutely torched the Bulls. 6 of 11, 102 yards, averaged 9.3 yards a throw, and his long pass was the 42-yarder that really started to turn the game in the Golden Flash's favor. To me, if I was UP, I would have been blitzing the heck out of them all fourth quarter long. And quite frankly, even if you had to hit them late and risk getting a penalty, I think it would have been worth it to call Kent State's bluff and say, hey, guys, this is the future of your team here. This game don't mean anything to you guys. You sure you still want to do this? I would have intimidated and challenged Kent State like that. But unfortunately, UB decided not to do that, and they paid the price as they suffer another second half collapse and lose 30-27 in overtime to the Golden Flashes. So for UB, they got to put this one in the rearview mirror as well. The bowl eligibility is still right there in front of them, but now they need to collect it Friday at 1 o'clock. You win, you go to a bowl. You lose, you go home. So that's what's at stake. And I promised a little bit of a surprise of what you can expect. Well, a little bit of a surprise for you. If UB wins next week and they get to a bowl, I will have a special mystery guest on. That's right, a special mystery guest on if UB can close and seal the deal next week against Akron. So if you need more motivation to root for the Bulls to beat Akron, that'll be it right there. And it would be great to have this mystery guest on, because I know it's one Bullseye Nation that you have wanted in the comments to get on. It's somebody that I've wanted to get on all season long as well. So go Bulls next week, and hopefully they can pull it out, because it would be a really big show, plus a bowl preview as well, if they're able to find a way to win. So with all that taken care of, let's get you the stats of the game, and we will do that right now. So in terms of first downs, UB still had more than Kent State, 23-19. UB went 6 of 18 on third down. Kent State went 5 of 18. 3 of 3 on fourth down were the Bulls. Kent State went 4 of 5 on fourth downs. Total yardage in the game, 364 for the Golden Flashes, 346 for the Bulls, 165 to 150. The passing yards in favor of Buffalo. In terms of rushing, Marquez Cooper was a handful this evening for the Golden Flashes. 214 yards on the ground for Kent State, 181 for your Bulls. Penalties, 5 of 35 for Kent State, 4 of 21 for the Bulls. And time of possession, this is probably the most frustrating stat. UB dominated it, 38:03 to 21:57. Usually when you dominate time of possession like that, you win the games. But unfortunately, that was not to be today. And both teams turned the ball over once in this ball game. And as far as the officiating goes, you're going to hear Brad talk about it a little bit. They were okay in the first couple quarters, but it got wacky in the second half, especially. And I think in the fourth quarter and overtime, there were some calls against the Bulls that were tic-tac at best. And I didn't agree with a lot of them. And I know Brad didn't either. So we'll break that down a little bit further as well as we go along here on the Bullseye Nation postgame show. But right now, we want to get you the offensive plays of the game here on Bullseye Nation with yours truly behind the mic. .8:43 to go, second quarter, tied at 3, Kent State and Buffalo. UB with the football, downfield left to right. They're going to go with Myers out of the shotgun. 2 receivers flanked out wide to the right, 1 to the left. Running back is Cook off the right shoulder of the quarterback Snyder. Goal line defense for the Golden Flashes. UB from north to south end zone, left to right. The snap. It's a direct one. Myers on the keeper up the middle. Gonna tumble on into the end zone. Touchdown, UB. Nice scramble there from Matt Myers, and that is your first touchdown of the afternoon for either squad. And with 8:43 to go in the first half, UB takes the lead. It is the Bulls 9 and Kent State 3. What a rush by Myers. 11:21 to go, third quarter, tied at 10. UB and Kent State. Bulls driving. They got 1 receiver wide to the right, 1 wide to the left. Running back Washington to the left side of Matt Myers, the quarterback. Basic 4-3 defense look for the Golden Flashes. UB now going from south to north end zone, right to left. Man in motion to the left side of the line. The snap. They fake the give. Myers takes it up the middle across the 15. On the run across the 10. He's going to take it up the middle. He's at the 5, and he jogs on into the end zone for the UB touchdown. And Matt Myers does it again. From around the Kent State 17-yard line, he just dashed right up the middle after a beautiful play fake to the running back Washington. Myers just took it right up the middle, and right now, Kent State just cannot stop him on defense. And so, with 11 minutes left to go here in the third quarter, UB retakes the lead. It's the Bulls 16, Kent State 10. 4:41 to go, third quarter. Right now, the score is 17-10 UB. And the Bulls have it at the Kent State 2-yard line. Ball plays center of the field. UB again from right to left down the field. 2 receivers spread out to the right, 1 to the left. Goal line blitz to look for the Golden Flashes. On a first and goal, the snap, and he takes it himself again. Gonna plow his way forward and gets across the goal line into the end zone. Once again, finds Pater, touchdown UB. And it's who else? Matt Myers again with his 3rd touchdown of the ball game. And UB really starting to take control now as we have 4:20 left to go here in regulation, the third quarter. And it's UB now taking a 23-10 lead. of the Golden Flashes. What an afternoon from Matt Myers. As always, we hope you enjoyed those UB offensive plays of the game. And again, you saw, as I said in the open, that Matt Myers was probably UB's best offensive player today. And ultimately, it is a shame to waste such a great effort in an ultimately another heartbreaking defeat. Well, you've heard my thoughts on it. Now, do you want to hear? And it's time for, you know him, you love him. He is the big analyst for the UB Bulls on WWKB 1520. He's entertaining to boot. And again, I know a lot of people that listen to this really enjoy this segment with them. And so enjoy getting his thoughts. It's Brad Riter as we talk to him about, yes, unfortunately, another UB collapse. Enjoy it. And we now welcome in Brad Riter, UB Bulls. He's their main analyst on WWKB 1520. And Brad, we're going to get right to it right here. And, to open the broadcast, I mentioned I kind of feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day right now because we're talking about another UB collapse. And, they're up 24-10, but in a way, this feels worse than the Central Michigan one because when they played the Chippewas, really from the first play or at least the early stage of the third, that one started to become unraveled. This one, to me, the game did not really feel like it was in danger until all of a sudden about 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and Kent State hits that big long bomb. And all of a sudden, the wheels came off even faster. Does it almost make it seem like this one might even be worse, not only because you were at home, but how quickly this one unraveled almost out of nowhere?
I don't know that I'm going to use the word worse. They're all running together, which I think is not ideal. There's a pattern that has developed. We haven't looked at a win since October 22nd, and it's been more than a month. And this game against Akron that's going to happen this week didn't need to happen. It's only there so the Bulls can go play a bowl game, maybe if they can come out on top of Akron. So it's been difficult to watch. And as a person who really cares about the program, as a person who has a vested interest in what happens in the postseason, a lot could be resolved by now by having a play or two go the Bulls' way at any point during this streak, this losing streak that's been going since October, or by having a game played against Akron, and then you start flashing back to a Hail Mary against Holy Cross. There are just so many things that have happened that have made it so that I'm not going, personally, I'm not going to the Bahamas. I'm not going to the Arizona Bowl, the Barstool one that I thought would be perfect for the Bulls. I thought that was a great fit. Mark Allnut told me on the pregame show before the game. That's where pregame shows usually are, right before the game. He told
me,
well, he told me that if the Bulls win 6 games, they will go to a bowl game, which I didn't know. That he told me that as fact. I was worried, as I typically am, when you're waiting to get that win to become bowl eligible. You just get left out. All these conversations happen without your team being involved. But they still have an opportunity if they can go and win this game at home, the makeup game against Akron, to go to a bowl game. And, I guess that's what the season has come down to. The season has come down to go beat a bad team and you can go to a bowl anyway. And it'll be the last, the last slot. You'll just get jammed in wherever nobody else wanted to go, I guess. I don't know. It's been very frustrating. And I'm sorry I didn't really answer your question, but my general um state of the Bulls is that it's frustrating to know how close this team is to being a 8, 9, 10 win team and
Yeah.
have them sitting here at 5 on November 29th.
They really should be. And me and Norm were talking about this last night. They really should at least be 8-3, and instead they're sitting here at 5-6. And I don't know. They keep having a problem closing out the game with double-digit leads, and I don't know. I mean, the meltdowns continue to happen. Do you just noticing and watching them? Is there anything in particular you notice about this team and why they just can't? Like, it's just the same old song and dance, same old story. They get these big leads and they count. Do you think they just take their foot off the gas, or do you think something else might be going on here? Do you think they get more nervous, or why this keeps happening?
I think they think they're done before they're done. They're really good at dealing with adversity. They're good at dealing with um, being behind, being under the gun, being blah blah blah, whatever you want to say. But when you take the season as a whole, there's a pattern that is repeating, which is as soon as they get to a level of comfort, they slip into being comfortable. So I don't know what that is. It's not a particularly young team. They're playing a kid at quarterback,
All
but
right.
beyond that, and I'm not going to lay this on Cole Snyder in any way, but they, when they're down, they they seem to be the right team. They know what they're doing. They know who they are, and then when they're up, they seem to earlier than they should decide that they've won a game, and
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. It's bizarre. I hope it's different next year, but it's the story of the season this year that when they get to a spot where it looks like they're in good shape, they seem to have become too comfortable, and they lose their edge, for lack of a better term, and haven't been able to put away several now of these games to get themselves to where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think the other part that's frustrating, and here's where, I agree with not putting it on Snyder or even Matt Myers, who I thought was probably one of UV's best offensive players in the game against Kent State. But what I am going to put it on, at least in my opinion, a little bit, the one thing that worries me about Coach Moan, we kind of got into this last week, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more here. You think back to the first quarter, and Snyder, it's a long bomb pass, and Marshall, it's at like the 5-yard line. If he brings it in, that is probably a walk-in touchdown. And he couldn't hang on to it. Now, Marshall's been one of the best receivers on this team. So, once in a while, a drop's going to happen. But they didn't go back to that type of play the rest of the game. And while I know they're more a run-first team, the fact they didn't go back to it at all, I think it really hurt them, especially when they hit the fourth quarter and they wanted to continue with the quarterback sneak. And all of a sudden, Kent State started catching on to it and they started stopping them. There just seemed to be a bit of the stubbornness of we're not going to go away from the ground game. And I think that really came back to hurt them. And when I look at it, it's like, yeah, I get that he ended up dropping the pass, but don't say you can't beat Kent State over the top, because you basically did it. The play just didn't get finished. And then to just totally go away from it, I kind of look at Coach Lindquist there and say, I'm really not sure what the thinking was there, but I definitely think it hurt him down the stretch.
Well, it was borderline shocking to see Justin Marshall drop not just that pass, but a couple.
Yeah.
And even the one, they had the one down the sideline, and maybe it's the same one you're talking about, that if it had been reviewed, it was called incomplete, but it actually was caught and then fumbled out of the end zone,
Yeah,
which
I think it
which
is.
which would have, I mean, that would have been a killer. And they hurried up and
Yeah.
ran a play to not have it called a completion, because it was.
Yeah.
Officiating in this game was
Yeah.
beyond Mac refs. I mean, it was crazy. There were a lot of things that worked against the Bulls there too. There was a situation where the referee walked in and signaled the first down, and then the Bulls came out thinking they had a first down, and they didn't. They had a 3rd and 1, and they ran a
Wait,
different play than they would have had they know. It's bizarre. I mean,
wow.
there's video evidence. The official walked in, marked a first down. No one else on the field reacted to him marking it a first down.
Wow.
And then it became 3rd down, then it became 4th down, and there was a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
But back to the stuff you're actually asking me about. Justin Marshall dropping a couple passes was crazy to me. I mean, one
Yeah.
is okay, but he had I think he ended up with like 14 yards, and it should have been 112 yards. Like that was weird. And the Myers thing, he was awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I was so proud of him, honestly,
Yes.
for what he has dealt with. I mean, he 2 years ago he's a starter on this team. He's got a lead at Penn State, or he did I say Penn State? I think I did. He's in the game at Penn State, and whether it was a lead or just they were tight, he gets hurt, and everything has gone downhill since then. For
Right.
him, and he hasn't seen the field this year until this week,
Yeah.
and he was awesome. I mean, it was very similar to the Bert Emanuel Jr. stuff that happened in the Central Michigan game,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden you put in this guy, you know what's coming, here it comes, and they couldn't stop him. And I enjoyed it. He ran for, I don't know, 112 yards, something like that. He was awesome. But when all is said and done, it goes back to the first thing I was talking about. It just, the lead is there, and they think they're done, and
Yeah.
they're not. And I don't know if that's individual players, if that's Coach Mo, if that's Shane Montgomery, if that I don't know what it is, but there's just this lack of overall recognition of the situation that I think
Yeah.
got them beat again in a game that
Yeah.
they had it was for the taking.
Especially, I think back to that drive. Now, granted, the one good thing I'll say about the coaching was, when they got the interception and it was 24-10 and they were deep in Kent State territory, I think it was a 4th down and 2. And I was kind of worried that, Coach Mo might go for it here. But I think he made the right call in sending McNulty, who's been fantastic all season long. It was good to see him go for that call. Unfortunately, the field goal got missed,
Right.
which was a killer, because it looked like when that kick started, it was really windy. But when it started, it looked like it was right down the middle. And then all of a sudden it hooked to the right and caught the upright. But that actually I thought was good, that at least he, at 24-10, he's like, let's go up 3 scores here.
Right.
But unfortunately, McNulty missed it. And I think that's where the momentum maybe started to turn a little bit, for Kent State.
That was probably the first uh-oh moment for me. I agree with you and the coaching staff that the kick was the right move there, and you expect it to go through. The wind was crazy. My favorite thing that happened, well, there were 2 wind related things in the game. One was the first field goal that Kent hit. Picture the number 7, okay, extended off of his foot. So he kicked it, he aimed it 10 yards to the right of the right goalpost. So it went up off his foot. Picture a 7 being drawn by the ball, starting at the bottom. It went out to the right, and then it came back to the left. It was aimed to the right of the right goalpost, and it tucked in behind the left goalpost. It's not something that seems physically possible. So That's the kind of win that was happening at the same end where
Yes.
McNulty wound up missing.
Yeah.
So nothing was a given in the kicking game on Saturday. Saturday? Did they play Saturday or was it a weird?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Nothing was a given.
Yes.
So I didn't find myself upset with any of that. It was unfortunate. I think it was the right decision to
Yes.
kick. And then I think it stinks that he missed, but he's a good kicker and
Oh,
oh
he's
well.
awesome.
It happens sometimes and the wind was terrible. So
Yeah.
but yeah, right there, we're like, all right, 3 scores. I was ready to consider the game over.
Yeah.
And they didn't get the third, and we know where it
Yeah.
went from there.
Well, it's funny. I still thought that the game, like, I still felt, even after they missed the field goal, I still felt really good about where UB was at because Kent State only had 10 points, and it didn't seem like this defense was going to crater. It seemed like they were staying on them. And it was that third and long and that long bomb, and all of a sudden it just changed everything.
Yeah.
And I thought the one bad offensive drive I think UB definitely had was after it became 24-16. They wanted to keep going with that, the Myers and Kent State was ready for it. They really didn't move the ball. And you could see Kent State at that point. They're like, now they got the ball again. They're only down 8. To me, that's really where I think my heart just started going through my chest as a UB fan. That's when I said, uh-oh, we might be in trouble here.
Yeah. It's weird for me because they're all just blending together. Like I'm
Yeah.
not once the division's out of play, which it was with Ohio's win
Yeah.
a few days earlier. It's just all right. Get to 6. Just get to 6. Go to a bowl game. Wrap it
Yep.
up. Try harder next year. I don't know. Like
Yep.
and all of it to me is about extending the season and playing more
Yeah.
and getting another game.
Yep.
And I this team, I mean, again, I think I said this the last time I talked to you. They were a 500 team, I believe, at the time that I talked to you.
Yeah.
It's what they are.
Yes.
They're pretty good, and then pretty bad, and then it ends up being you win one, you lose one, you win one, you lose one, and that's who they are. And so we got right now a 3-game losing streak, and then a 5-game winning streak, and then a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It's all running together. I guess this is my way of saying I don't have a specific answer to your specific question. Just that the feeling of this season overall is it's a what could have been type of thing because
Yeah.
there's so close so often, and they should be comfortably in the bowl picture right now, and possibly in the Detroit picture as well, and they're not. So I don't know. It's been rough, man.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's awful to think about, but if they didn't have that 5-game winning streak, they'd be sitting here a winless team. So we're talking about being 8-3. If it wasn't for that winning streak, it's not like they've won 2, lost 2. It's been lost 3, then win 5, as you said, and then lose another 3. And another thing we have to talk about, Coach. It's a little bit of an elephant in the room, but we got to ask it at the start of overtime with the coin toss. How is that, coach? Do you not at least make sure that everybody is on the same page of what you want? You saw Coach Mo run onto the field then, but instead they pulled as Paul Peck referred to it as a Jerome Bettis. And I mean, how does that, especially the game had gotten so far away from you to that point, but you still had the chance to win it in overtime. How does something like that, how do you not make sure that everybody is on the same page when they go out there for the coin toss?
Well, I think you trust James Patterson to go out there and make a call. He's been on the team for what, 14 years? I don't know. He's been here for a while.
Right.
And you trust him. And honestly, I get what happened in
Okay.
that he knew what he wanted, and here's how I know. Here's how I know that I understand it. when he said whatever he said, which was we want to play defense second or so, I don't remember
Yeah.
whatever the words were. I have them in my notes from the game, but I don't have the notes in front of me.
Okay.
Whatever it was, I knew what he meant, so much so that it didn't occur to me immediately that he had screwed up and said the wrong thing. And then you start hearing the players going, he said it, he said it, he said it. And then I went, oh, he processed it incorrectly because he wanted to go second.
Right.
And he wanted to play defense, and he plays defense. So he's talking about himself. It's just, I get what happened in the moment.
Right.
Honestly, I don't think the system is set up properly. Like, if you win the toss, you should get to choose what you want. And if you
Right.
misspeak, that shouldn't outdo what you actually want. You won the toss,
Yeah.
so you should get to pick. And it should be a situation where a guy can go, that's not what I meant. What I meant is this.
Yeah.
Oh, you said it. And I mean, I get it. It happened. I'm not mad at anyone about it. It's just like, that's not
Yeah.
the spirit of the rule should not be that we can trick you. Like you said the
Right.
wrong thing and now you're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, it stinks that it happened, but I can't lay it on James. He's not there to
Yeah.
speak. He's there to play football, and he
Yeah.
said the wrong thing. I don't know. I don't lay that on the coach. What do you want the coach to do? Send out the
Yeah.
guy he trusts to go answer
True.
the question. And so
Yeah.
he sent out James Patterson. Like, we don't have a better person
That's
on
true.
the roster to send out there that you trust more. And then the wrong words came out,
Yeah.
and then the Bulls end up having to go first. So I don't know. It was weird, but I'm not going to get too worked up about who did what wrong there. He said the wrong words. I've done that 1,000 times. I've done it 10 times talking to you in the last 11 minutes. So how am I going to get mad at James Patterson?
I've probably done it 3 or 4 times the amount you've done it, Brad. Trust me.
Perfect.
But it's just for UB. It's funny now. I got to tell you, I officially hate coin tosses now. The Bills can't win them, and UB, when they win them, all of a sudden just the wrong words or a misspeak happen. Right. It's terrific. Buffalo football and coin tosses always a great recipe for success.
I would like this to be the time, the second time in a year that they change a rule because of how a coin toss goes with the Bulls. But right. The reality is, and I don't know, I think a lot of people learned about how coin tosses work from playing Madden. And it's not correct in Madden. They simplify it. The reality is you have a choice of kicking, receiving, or choosing your side. There are two things you can pick between. Kick, receive is on one side.
Right.
And then choose an end is on the other side. And you can pick one or the other, or you can defer at the beginning of the game. You could defer and let the other team pick one of those things, and you'll pick in the second half.
Right.
You don't pick receive and then automatically the other team receives. You pick receive, and then at the start of the second half, the other team gets to choose if they want to kick or receive or choose an end. And it only comes up in extreme weather games, but this was an extreme weather game with wind. And I don't know. It's just not something that's practiced or discussed, or I think well understood how the thing works. The reality is, a ref should say, you won the toss. You have a choice to either kick or receive, or you have a choice to choose an end. Which do you choose? And if it was stated in that way, I think you wouldn't have this thing happen. Do we need to change the rule because of one thing that happened to the Bulls? No, probably not. But would it be better if it was the right way and straightforward and this couldn't happen? Yeah. So I kind of blame the way that they operate as opposed to blaming the Bulls or Patterson or whatever.
Yeah, I almost wonder if rather than saying like defense first, defense second, I almost wonder if coach should just have them say like receive if they want the ball first, or kick, maybe simplify it so that, because I could see how maybe you get defense first or second confused, and it leads to that nightmare result. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe, yeah, you just say, I've heard players say, we want the ball, we want maybe just change it up a little bit rather than that. So just to safeguard so that just doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far down the road on this, but the reality is, if the ref says kick or receive, you'd be fine. Or if they
Yeah.
said which, kick, receive, or choose an end, those are your three choices. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It solves it. Again, it's not a major problem because it doesn't come up a lot, but it's a little thing that could be fixed in all of football. And I don't know. It shouldn't have happened. Is kind of where I land on it, rather than laying blame on a player or a coach or anything like that. It's just like the rule is stupid. They won the toss. They got to pick what they wanted, and then because he didn't say the words in the right order, he didn't get the pick. There was a thing a long time ago, and I've meant to look it up, and I haven't. Maybe I will, but in time for Saturday, or Friday rather.
Yeah.
There was I think it's an NFL game where somebody won the toss, and it was overtime, and what they had discussed in their meeting was, we want to kick with the wind. So that was the overall thing, is we care about the weather. It makes it so that we care more about the direction than we care about kicking or receiving. So we want to kick with the wind because we're going to win this thing in overtime with a field goal. And we want to kick with the wind. So they win the toss, and the player says, we want to kick with the wind. Per rules, all we hear is kick. We choose to kick. So now that team has to kick, and then the other team gets to choose the direction. So they end up kicking into the wind. They have to kick off into the wind, and that's not what they meant. And it shouldn't. Coin toss. Here we go. Coin toss should not be a contest to say words correctly. It should be, you won. What do you want to do?
Right.
So I don't know. I'm frustrated with all of the things, and then this is one that I can't blame them for, and it could be better. I'm not launching a campaign to change everything about how things are done, but that's a little one that could be fixed.
Yeah, no, and I understand that there's still the overtime play. It's just having it happen when it happened at the start of overtime to decide the game. That's why it gets stopped. But if that mix up happens at the beginning of the game, it's 0-0. You got 4 quarters of football. You can now you're in overtime where it definitely could affect. And my thing is really, so once the coin toss and that debacle is all done, obviously UB comes out, don't have a great start to that offensive possession, still are able to get a field goal out of it. And then Kent State on the UB defense just goes right down the field on them. And I don't know if it was fatigue. I don't know if they had just lost confidence by that point. But, man, I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Bills defense on the overtime drive against Mahomes last year, where they went like right down, almost surgically right down the field to end the game. And I don't know if you call a timeout before that, if you're Coach Mo, to try to get your defense on the same. Hey, I don't know. What did you see on the last drive from Kent State, like maybe from the UB defense perspective? Do you think it was just fatigue? Do you think they lost confidence? What do you think it was? Because they really didn't give much of a challenge at all.
Yeah. I don't know. It was everything that we've talked about so far. It was, I mean, I know mentally where I was at that point. I was like, this is another loss, and I don't know how to coach that out of a team. I can't. You could feel it going away. I mean, you blow a lead, then you blow a coin toss, then you only get then the first play is a sack or whatever that was.
Like I think it was a drop snap or something.
Yeah.
On it.
Yeah. And then I don't know. It felt like they're about to lose. To me, I'm not even on the team. So they had to feel that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Rough. It was a rough afternoon in
Yeah, it
Andrews.
just certainly didn't seem like it was gonna be. I mean, they come out, they take the 24-10 lead, doing everything right. And
Yep.
once again, it just totally collapses on them. And it's just it's bewildering at this point. And I remember last time when we talked about a drive against Central Michigan, where, right after I think it was after a mistake UB made and then Central Michigan went right down the field and scored. Well, after McNulty misses that field goal, I feel like if the defense just steps up one more time right there, I think the game is over. I think we're having a different conversation.
Sure.
And what happens? Kent State hits the long bomb. They make it 24-16. It's just, once again, we hear that Coach Linkley. Yeah, I mean, I get it. He was with the Cowboys. His background is defense, but we've seen a couple times the defense has the chance to end the game, and they can't. They have a hard time doing it, and it's like, look at what you've done in the first 3.5 quarters. Just do it one more time. You held them to 10 points, and then all of a sudden, it just like they almost seem like they forget how to play.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm sorry
Okay.
that I'm so out of answers right now
Yeah.
on this team. Like I'm worried about Akron. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where this whole thing is going. It's
Yeah.
you talk about getting one stop in this game. You could do that in the vast majority of the losses this year. I mean, none of this conversation is where it is if they don't give up a Hail Mary to an FCS team.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as you can tell, all of my focus is on the fact that they have 5 wins and not six wins.
Yeah.
That's the whole season to me because you go in, the
Yep.
goals for the season are to go to Detroit and go to a bowl game. You want to win the MAC East and you want 6+ wins to get to a bowl game. And that's my focus. And I think that's their focus. And, Detroit went away, not even with all of the close, like near misses, whatever you want to call it, the close
Yeah.
losses,
Yeah.
the failures to hold a lead, all the things that have happened over the course of the year. Any one thing goes their way, and they again, I keep going back to the SES, the Holy Cross game, but like they haven't won since October 22nd. Had they not given up a Hail Mary in week 2 or 3, whatever it was, against Holy Cross, they would have hit bowl eligibility on
Yeah.
October 22nd. And now
Yeah.
it's November 29th, and they're sitting on 5 wins. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words. I apologize for coming on your podcast without words to say,
No.
but here I am.
Hey, it's you and me both at this point. Unfortunately, I think it's a lot of UV fans right now. You still you're root for this team. You still believe in them, but man, it's been extremely disheartening these last couple losses, just the way that it's happened. Last thing here, Brad, and then we'll let you go. Obviously, you just kind of mentioned it. We got Akron. Win or go home. You're taking on a Zips team that figures had lost 9 in a row. I thought was the worst team in the conference. I still kind of think that, but figures right as we need to beat them. Here's Akron busting out of that 9-game losing streak and going into Northern Illinois and smacking around the Huskies. And now here they come in feeling good. Another team that the game doesn't mean anything for as far as standings wise. And, what are you telling your guys? Like, if you're a coach, what are you saying after these last 2 losses to get them to forget about it and get them fired up for an Akron team that's just going to play loose?
I'm going to try to win the game by 100 points. I think. I mean, there's it's no mercy. It's we never let up. It's we act like we're down the whole time, and we 100's unrealistic. 70 is not. You could put up 70 points on Akron.
Right. Yeah.
So there's just you have to have no foot off the gas, and it's been a problem all year.
Yeah.
Teaching this team to not take its foot off the gas. But I mean that's the only route here is to go out, win the first quarter by a zillion, and then treat the second quarter like you didn't win the first quarter by a zillion. And it's something they need to like a mindset they need to develop overall, but it needs to show itself on Friday.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, honestly, if I was Coach Mo, I would just tell him, you know what, go out there. You love playing football. Go out there and just play. Just leave it all out on the field. I would get my guys in the frame of mind that they don't have anything to play for, like Akron, and go out there and just go out and play the game you love, the game you know how to play, and keep it simple. My feeling is if you do that, maybe it takes some of the pressure off instead of, oh boy, now we got to win this game to be bowl eligible. No, they got to go out there, play their game, play UB football, and go out and have a good time. Leave it all on the field and play a full 4 quarters.
Well, they've had a few opportunities here to get themselves in a position to go to, I don't know, the Bahamas,
Right.
Arizona. Those were the two I was really looking at that I think if they'd won one more game over the course of this thing, they'd be sitting there. But
Arizona would have been neat.
Those two are out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Psych them up for Boise.
The blue field.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got my Boise hat on right now. My
I
potato
can
bowl
tell.
hat. That's my hunch. Is
Yeah.
that's the where the potential landing spot. Myrtle Beach is
Maybe
still in play. There's cool stuff going on. But I wonder what a bowl trip means to a college player who's not from here, compared to what it means to a 48-year-old father of 3, me. Like that's my vacation. Like they canceled my vacation by not winning a 6th game so far. So I'm this is all from my perspective. I don't know how much they care about a bowl. I know what it was like when the Bulls didn't go to bowl games ever.
Yeah.
And how exciting it was when they would become bowl eligible. Now it's a pretty regular thing that this program is in the upper tier of the MAC and gets to go on these extra trips very often. So I don't know. I honestly, I don't remember the question. I'm just telling you how I feel.
Yeah, no, but that's an interesting point you just made. I would figure because bringing another bowl, I mean, especially if they go to Boise, they obviously made it there with Khalil Mack and obviously didn't get it done against, I believe, San Diego State.
Correct.
And, so it could be a chance for the UB program to avenge that loss. If they went, I would imagine that a bowl trip's got to mean a lot because if you can bring one home, like I got to imagine the 2 teams that have won the bowl games for the bowls that they've won in their history, it had to mean something because those are the first 2 that this program has ever won. So I got to imagine it means something. I mean, I would be surprised if it didn't. It just kind of was interesting what you just said right there.
It gives you good signs to hang up inside the building. You get to put up banners that look good to recruits, that look good to the players coming back, that get to remember that they've accomplished something. It's a fun thing to do in December, and if you can win the game, it's a cool thing to look back on. That's the extent of it. I mean, we're here for fun, right? I mean, it's football, it's college, it's fun. Really,
it's not like going to Detroit and winning the conference,
right,
or winning the MAC East, or it's also we got to remember at the same time, since we're not playing for the national championship, it's only going to mean so much, which is a good point. But you know what? I think if this team can beat Akron and find a way to win a bowl, given what has happened to them, and the way they've blown some games, it would be a nice finish and a nice way to salvage a season that right now they're on the brink of blowing.
Yeah. And they should beat Akron. I haven't even looked at the number, but I'm sure they're a pretty heavy favorite in the game. And they should handle it. And to your point about the losing streak ending last week against Northern for Akron. I actually like that better. They've got that
Right.
they're done. They're not on a losing streak anymore. They're not trying to get out of it. They're just trying to
Right.
wrap up the season. And this is a game that honestly should have been played 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and is going to be played now. So I don't I don't fear Akron suddenly becoming
Right.
uh, you
Like
know
Kent
a
State in the
a
last
superpower.
6 minutes or
Yeah,
Central Michigan.
yeah, I don't have a fear of that. My concern is for the Bulls' state of mind heading into the game,
Yeah.
knowing that everything that they're playing for now should have been wrapped up a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I fear that a little bit, but I think that's maybe too big picture. And all we're talking about is a bunch of college kids who are going to go out and try to play football and win a game against Akron. And if it just comes down to play a football game against Akron, the Bulls are a better team. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm hoping for here.
All right. And on that note, this has been the State of the UB Bulls address. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Brad. Appreciate it. And hopefully, I'll say it again, at the risk of jinxing it, hopefully next week we're talking about being bowl bound instead of going home, and we're talking about a UB win, because God knows you deserve it. I deserve it. All the UB fans that have been, suffering with this team during all of this, they deserve it. So hopefully we'll be talking about a bowl game next week and a win.
I am in favor of everything you just said.
Absolutely. That's a good way to wrap it up. Brad, great stuff. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Brad giving us great insight as always here on Bullseye Nation, the postgame. And it's time now for the weekly segment of a featured analyst, Norm Rodriguez. And we're going to get his thoughts and some Normisms as well about what he thought about UB once again being unable to seal the deal. And once again, we bring in our featured analyst, Norm Rodriguez, to talk about another UB defeat in which they had a big lead and ultimately fell in overtime to Kent State. And Norm, to open the broadcast, I said I felt a lot like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. Honestly, that's how this feels right now. I mean, it's another second half lead. It was big. It seemed to be insurmountable. But I almost think that this one was even worse, because this one, even through the third quarter, it seemed like UB had it in control. Last week with Central Michigan, you could see it just come off the rails at the start of the third quarter. This one, all of a sudden, 6 minutes are left in regulation. Kent State hits a long bomb, and all of a sudden the game just goes rapidly. I mean, in my mind, that almost makes it worse than the fact that you're at home. How do you feel as far as this collapse? Do you think this one's worse than Central Michigan or about the same?
I would say worse, with the main reason being there wasn't a lot of time left in the fourth quarter, and they had to turn to a freshman quarterback, and he torched up the Bulls. He pretty much clipped them up, and it took it to an extra frame, and the Bulls could still salvage the season and get a possible bowl appearance, but 6 wins is only eligibility. That doesn't guarantee a bowl appearance. But taking a look at that game, I would rather pass a kidney stone than see that disaster again. That was awful.
It really was, Norm. And the amazing thing is that, Kent State was able to do it with a long bomb. I think the thing that frustrates me the most from this game, actually, if you go back in the first quarter, and I know there were some streaming issues, so first quarter, at times it cut out, but there was one long bomb pass to Justin Marshall. He was wide open at the Kent State 10. Throw was right in his arms, and he dropped it. And after that, UB didn't throw another long bomb toss like that the rest of the game. And I know he dropped it, but if he catches that, Norm, that is a walk-in touchdown. to completely just abandon, I know they're a run first team, but to completely abandon the long bomb when really it worked, the receiver just couldn't hang on. I really didn't understand that. And I think in the second half, again, you had issues with the play calling. It became too vanilla. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. They dug in the well one too many times in the running game. Before the end of regulation, they ran it at least 50 times. And all I know is with Marshall's drop, Stevie Johnson could have caught that ball for one. And secondly, they pretty much hit the line and pulled a Beverly Hillbilly, but they weren't breaking the black gold. They hit the sewage line. That's how crappy it was.
Another great Normism, my friend. You're on point again tonight, and thank God for that, because we have to try to make sense of this, and it's still not an easy loss to process. I mean, you had the lead up 24-10 with 6.5 to go. 3 games in a row, they've been on the verge of bowl eligibility, and they haven't been able to get it done. And my major concern, as we talked about last week, when Lance Leipold started, a lot of it was the same exact thing. Each time UB had a big lead, they couldn't close it out. We're seeing the exact same thing with Coach Lindquist. And for a guy who was praised as a defensive guru, he was for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, you know what, Norm? I think we know now why the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995, because if Jerry Jones thinks these types of people are the ones that are going to win right now, I was at the game, and seeing Coach Mo on the sideline, it just once again looked like he had no answers in those last 6 minutes. And even worse, the team looked like they had no answers.
Yeah, pretty much. This was similar to when Buffalo blew that lead against Minnesota in the NFL a couple weeks ago. You might as well just tell Coach Mo to take off the headset, sit in the corner, and think about what he's done, for one. And second, you mentioned Groundhog Day to begin that, but the scene I would think from that, the way Buffalo's been playing, is when Bill Murray drives on the railroad tracks because he realizes there's no consequences, and they don't get the cheeseburgers, the fries, the milkshake, or the flapjacks.
You know what? I think that's the perfect scene to pick out from there. It really just seemed like it spiraled again. And I mean, it doesn't make sense. The thing is that UB, obviously they went to the 2 quarterback system through most of that game. And actually that worked between Snyder and Myers, who I thought was probably UB's best offensive player. And I thought it was really good because we started to see them mix it up. We started seeing them do different things. And then Kent State started catching on in the 4th quarter, and it was like Coach Mo did not, and it's not just him, it's the offensive coordinator. So we want to be fair here. But the fact is, it looked like they didn't want to get off of that. They're like, we're going to get the quarterback sneak through fire and high water. This quarterback sneak is going to work again. Well, unfortunately, the Energizer battery ran out of juice there at the end, and the defense knew it, and there was really no mixing it up. And again, that's just so frustrating because it made it so easy on that possession where it was 24-16. It was no problem for Kent State to force that 3 and out. You move that football there, you could wind the clock down, you could get another score, you could win the game, basically, in essence. Instead, they go 3 and out because they go with the same play, and they basically telegraphed it for the Golden Flashes. I almost could have stopped it at that point.
Yeah, well, you did say that Mo was with the Cowboys at that during the 90s, and the last time they won that Super Bowl and whatever. And we all know that the owner for them is the NFL's Palpatine. Something. I get what I please. Something. But that turned out to be nothing, because the way that looked, it looked like he may have been an assistant for the Cowgirls cheer squad. That was pathetic.
Yeah, that just did not understand why they didn't try anything. Again, to me, on that 3rd down, 24-16, to me, that is where they should have tried the long bomb. Because to me, I would have dared that Kent State defense because they didn't. I'm sorry, Norm. He dropped it, but I'm going to count that as a completed pass. Kent State showed they had a hard time stopping that, and you did them a favor by not going to it again. They just stopped, and I don't understand it. It really, I know it kind of sounds repetitive here, but, it's hard to keep analyzing collapses like this. But it seems like each time we do, we have to keep coming back to the play calling because I think you can make a direct correlation between the conservative play calling, the inconsistency of it, the stubbornness, and them continuing to blow big leads. This is their third big blown lead they've had this year. Holy Cross, Central Michigan, and now Kent State.
Yeah, in the Central Michigan game, their lead was actually even bigger. They were up by 17 at halftime, and then we talked about it one of the last segments. Bert Emanuel Jr. gutted them like a fish all game long, and with this one, when you have to turn to a freshman quarterback and he's the one that pulls it off versus an experienced team like UB, that's sad.
Yeah, and what's even more sad to me is Kent State didn't have anything to play for. Some of the other teams they've played, at least they were a long shot, but they still kind of had some odds, you know what I mean? But Kent State, this is the last game of the year. They could not get bowl eligible. This was it for them. And for them to just collapse like this against a team like that, it's funny. I kind of mentioned earlier in the program that, if you remember the Sabres, we're going to kind of just switch sports real quickly here. But if you remember, the Sabres in the 90s under Lindy Ruff and before that Ted Nolan, if they sensed the lead was getting away from them and they were playing a team that was way out of the race, what did you usually see from the Sabres? They would put out Rob Ray or their big enforcer to go chasing some of the other, daring them, saying, you still want to do this? To me, if I was UB and Coach Mo, I would have had some of our best players blitz the freshman quarterback all the rest of that game, chase them around, even if you had to risk taking a penalty and make Kent State look them straight in the eye and say, hey, this game don't mean anything to you guys. You still want to do this or you want to get that other quarterback in there? Be a little bit intimidating. Instead, UB got soft and they ended up paying the price for it in the last 6 minutes. That might just be my ranting, Norm, but that sure seemed what it looked like to me.
Yeah, from what I saw, they didn't look like bulls charging at the herd. They were little sheep that were shored up by the farmer and just walked into the barn being ready to get slaughtered.
They were getting zapped by the golden flashes.
Well, they were 5-3. This isn't like a roller coaster at Darien Lake. This is like the one with John Candy where he gets forced out by Chevy Chase. It's one of those wooden ones that's all rickety and it's going up and down, up and down. 3 losses to start the year, 5-game winning streak. You look like gods. Did he fall back down to earth, losing 3 in a row? You're building that cliff and you're jumping down it, and that is even worse than the cliffhanger game on The Price is Right where the guy yodels. The price is wrong, UB. The price is wrong.
Agreed, Norm. Well said. It's really quite incredible to think about it. If they didn't have that 5-game winning streak, they wouldn't have any wins at all this year. It's not like it was win 2, lose 2, win 1. It's literally been all your wins came during that one winning streak, and the rest have been all losses. And when I look at that, that's very concerning for a team that's going to be hopefully trying to get a bowl after next week.
Yeah, all I know is this ain't the Texas two-step or do-si-do your partner the way this team's been playing. It's just been up and down like that roller coaster. And I don't even know if they're going to get bowl eligibility, especially after this debacle of a 3-game losing streak. It's even worse than the first 3.
Yeah, no, it really is. I know there's no losses to a Holy Cross FCS team in there, but you lost to 2 of the 3 worst teams in the MAC. And now figures, Norm, you play Akron next week, who I believe is the worst team in the conference, but they just smacked Northern Illinois last week to get their second win of the season. Figures, right when we need to beat them, right when we need the game. Now all of a sudden Akron looks competent. Unbelievable. I guess that's the way this season is breaking. That's the story of this second half for UB, my friend. It seems like it's just not going the Bulls' way right now.
No, it's not. And if they lose this game, this 4-game skid will be worse than the Bills' 4 straight Super Bowl losses. Not to bring any familiar pain, but you were a little kid at that time,
Yeah.
and that was shortly before I was even thought of.
Yeah, well, that brought back some scars, Norm. I mean, that brought up some wounds and scabs, and I'm sure it did for a lot older fans of Bullseye Nation. But it's true. This is just it's incredible. It's not like they're playing bad in the first half. They're in position to win all these games. You made a very good point when we were talking after the game. UB really should be like 8-3 right now. And instead, they're 5-6. And, you know, even if you only win one or two of those games, one, you're bowl eligible and you'd be 6-5. Even if you only win two of the three that you blew, you're sitting there at 7-4 and you lost all three. And that, if they don't get a bowl this year, you want to know where their season went? Those 3 games right there will tell you the story.
Yeah, it went down the toilet. And without that 5-game winning streak, we'd be talking about a Brooklyn bagel factory.
Big fat donut in the win column. Yeah. You know, I know Homer Simpson likes to say, donuts, but you know, we don't want donuts in the win column. And yeah, it really is scary how close, if it wasn't for that win streak, that we would be at potentially being 0-8. But I think what's more frustrating, Norm, and I think what frustrates a lot of Bulls fans, including us, is they really should be 8-3.
Yeah, they should. And I don't have as much of the means to watch the games as you have, but I do catch them when I know I'm able to. And they're similar like the Bills of times past, where they'll play 30 solid minutes and then either the last 15 or the second half, they just go in neutral. They can't even get that car out of the road, and they'll play like their transmission was busted.
Yeah, no, that's hey, you know what? For someone whose dad was in the collision industry for a long time, owned a collision shop, I appreciate that reference right there, my friend. But it's yeah, it really, it's amazing. It's like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you could better explain what it is because you've called a lot of football, but I don't know if it's complacency. I don't know if they take their foot off the gas or if they just get in the second half and they get really nervous when it comes time to close it out. But what do you think the biggest culprit? I know we've gone over some, but what are you seeing, Norm, that as a coach and as a broadcaster that might explain why they're having these second half meltdowns?
I think what happens is when you're up big at halftime, you get a little too relaxed. You ease that foot off. But the number one rule of thumb is even if you don't play with the same intensity, you should at least play even in the second half. So that way, if it were to get out of hand, you can still walk out with the victory. A great example of that, Miami and Houston, when they played each other on Sunday, Miami was up 30-0 at halftime. They didn't score at all in the second half, and they came really close to letting Houston back in that game. They put up 15 points in the second half.
Yeah, no, that is true. And you know, and Brad actually mentioned that last week in the post-game segment we did with him, you know, and he said, as far as Central Michigan, the way the Bulls played in that first half, I mean, it's almost impossible to not feel comfortable with the way the Bulls are playing. But at the same time, you know, you can't only play 2 quarters. You got to play 4 quarters. And Norm, you're a huge proponent of this. You know, you got to play from first whistle to the final horn, and UB just can't seem to do it right now.
And honestly, you and I have talked about this before. Maybe the best bet would be with some of this coaching to clean house fully if necessary, or at least consider getting either a new head coach or new coordinators of the offense and defense, respectively.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really, you know, it was good to see Myers play well. One thing that we should mention is actually a couple more guests we got to mention. One thing in fairness, and we're certainly not going to jump on him because he has been magnificent all season long. But one good thing that I saw from Coach Mo, at least in the fourth quarter, was when they were up 24-10 following the interception. It was good to see Coach Mo take the field goal attempt. I was worried that he might try to go for it there. I like that in that situation, he at least did the right thing going up 3 scores. Unfortunately, McNulty, and it's funny, how like the Bills got lucky against Detroit and Bass's kick ended up curving to the left and it just stayed inside the upright. I was standing and had a clear view of McNulty's miss. It looked like it was going straight down the uprights about halfway, but the wind was blowing and it grabbed it and forced it to the right and hit it off the goalpost. And I think you could hear a collective just let down sigh from the UB crowd when that happened. And Kent State ended up benefiting from that. And then the defense, what happens? They give up the long bomb. They give up the touchdown. That's the second week in a row where the defense can bail out the offense or special teams on a bad break, and they haven't been able to do it. And I thought Coach Mo was supposed to be a high pedigree defensive guy, but in these big moments, we're not seeing that.
Honestly, I wonder if he was affiliated with coaches like Rich Kotite, or if he got his coaching degree from What's the Matter You?
Yeah. Or maybe Coach Mora, where it's like playoffs.
I'm talking about the playoffs. Are you kidding
we just
me?
want to win a damn game.
UB just wants to win a game and make a bowl. Don't talk about the playoffs. Are you kidding me?
Playoffs. We just want to win a game. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But
yeah, if he wants to go on a rant like that, he needs to try and do it like Dennis Green, where there's the passion and the intensity.
We are who they thought we were.
And we let him off the hook.
That's right. It's Norm, you're bringing it, man. You're really bringing it. And I think it did give Kent State a lot of momentum. And you could see their sideline, because I was standing on the visitor side when that ball got picked off to give UB 1st and 10. I believe it was at like the Kent State 30. I saw all their players, their heads just collectively drop like a boxer who was down to his last seconds as far as in the countdown. And then when that didn't happen, everybody started jumping around on that sideline, and you could see that was where some momentum turned. But they still had them 3rd and long, and they give up the long bomb pass, and that just cannot happen in a situation like that.
No, it can't. And they just need to look at it this way. Akron, they're 2-9, but they got to take the game seriously. And a win, they can still salvage that possibility of getting the bowl game. But you told me this a couple weeks ago again, that 6 does not guarantee you a bowl necessarily. And with this slump that they're on, even if they were to beat the Akron Zips, I don't know if they're going to be bowl eligible, but if they were able to, it'd be the 7th time for them in the last 9 years.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it would just be, think about it, Norm. This is the 2nd year in a row that Coach Lindquist, the second half of the season, remember, they lost all those games in a row to end last season, and now they're on the precipice of doing it once again.
Yeah, it's not how you start, it's how you finish that counts. And there's a lot of teams, they'll start off great at the beginning of the season, and then it falls apart like a house of cards.
Absolutely. And how concerned, and then we'll talk about a couple other things, but one more thing here, and another thing that had to be just absolutely alarming was what happened in overtime. I mean, on the coin toss, I mean, to not know let me just let the viewers and listeners know, for those of you who didn't catch the game, Coach Lindquist, they wanted to make it where UB would get the ball last because they won the coin toss. But there was a mix-up in communication, and unfortunately, the officials then interpreted it, because of the miscommunication, that UB wanted the ball first, and you
Yep.
can play the dun, 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 and Coach Lindquist was running on the field. I think that's the fastest I've ever seen him run ever. Try to say no, no, but it was too late. And you want to talk about a coaching issue. How do you not make sure that you're on the same page in a situation like that? To me, that totally shocked me. I was speechless. And you know how hard it is to make me speechless, but I was absolutely shocked by that. I don't know how you felt watching that.
Honestly, it made me think of two past NFL games where instances like that occurred. The first one was that UB pulled a Matthew Slater, and the other one was the head tails call by Jerome Bettis on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And that rep who made that mistake, he was the same rep that messed the Bills up on the home run throw forward because that was not a lateral. Phil Luckett.
Yep. Very good connection there. Love those tidbits of knowledge from you. And
but the Matthew Slater one was the funniest because New England lost to Ryan Fitztragic. I mean, Fitzpatrick.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's we remember those days. But it's funny, you mentioned Jerome Bettis. That's what Paul Peck and Jim Kubiak, that's what they said on the radio call. Because I was listening, I was in my car at that point driving back from the game, and they both instantly, simultaneously both said Jerome Bettis. Like Jerome Bettis. I mean, but again, as a coach, how do you let that happen? I mean, the Bills can't win a coin toss, and UB can't execute when they win a coin toss. You know what? I hate coin tosses now.
We might as well find a photo of Coach Mo's reaction and then put for the caption on it and put all over the media, you had one job.
That's right. I mean, how it's hard to even ask this question. I mean, but how do you not make sure 125% that the players know what you want when they go out there for the coin toss? Like, how do you not make sure that's the case?
Well, another rule of thumb with football is to make sure you have full communication with your players. This isn't grammar school we're talking about here. These are college students. They got to be able to communicate with each other, them and the coaches, to get something as simple as a coin flip right. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Put that on Fox's. Come on, man.
Yeah, in all reality, and then I think the play calling on the UB first overtime drive, the only one they would have, not very good. To me, that comes back to abandoning the passing game early, and then when you really needed to go to it, it let you down. It didn't. I mean, Marshall made the one nice grab to convert that 3rd and long, but when they kept trying for it for the end zone, it didn't work, including a very shaky, questionable offensive pass interference call. Referees were good in the first 3 quarters. They turned into the Holy Cross guys in the 4th quarter onward. They made a couple really questionable calls, and especially that offensive pass interference. I didn't think they were that good in the second half of the game. And that play calling, again, that's why they needed to stick with the pass earlier. When they really needed it, it wasn't there for them because they stopped after one drop.
Looks like the team motto with that is, if at first you don't succeed, give up. And
it does seem like that, yeah.
And with those questionable calls in the 4th quarter, maybe they had their dinner reservations, maybe their filet mignons were overcooking. They want it rare and it's already overcooking from the temperature. But the next time when they do an overtime coin toss, though, they just need to say defense. You don't need to say heads, tails, or we want the ball second, or maybe a quick reference from the 60s, Abner Hayes will kick to the clock. Like, come on, you got one job. Just say defense in college overtime, because you don't only get the ball in the second or after second at the end of the first one, you get it to start the second overtime as well. So you get it back-to-back times.
Yeah, no, that is correct. And the other part of that too, it just was kind of disappointing to see the way the defense crumbled. It was kind of like the Bills defense on that final drive in Kansas City last year. By that point, they just basically full like Swiss cheese. They may as well have not been out there. And I
Yeah,
think
that's a painful
absolutely.
memory. But you know what? Two things. One, if Trey White was in that game, that wouldn't have happened. Secondly, Frazier did a god awful job with the defensive schematics of it. And thirdly, I can see this throughout the season. Bass is actually kicking the ball away from the end zone to force returns. That's something they should have done in that playoff game. That could have burnt off 4 or 5 seconds. So I think they learned from that and are starting to actually use it. And the special teams has allowed very minimal yardage on kick returns.
Yeah, and Kent State, like, I guess my bigger point with that was that, if the UB defense, remember, they did get a field goal in overtime. So all they needed to do was stop them, or even home to a field goal, we go to a second overtime. And that defense, we love to keep it positive, but I'm sorry, Norm. That defense was pathetic on that game-winning touchdown drive. Kent State did whatever they wanted and basically made it extremely easy to win the game on the touchdown.
Yeah, it looked like they ran out of gas on that last one. You got to play until the game's over. And I even said this on a few or segments of my talk show on the radio. It's you got to play the full 60 and then extra time if you have to, are the overtime periods.
Right. And I think it's fair to wonder, our punter Vineri was not particularly great. Now, Kent State punter wasn't either, in fairness, but you got a guy with a rocket of a leg in McNulty. I know he's the kicker and not so much the punter, but remember that one shanked punt flipped the field position. Kent State finally got or were able to tie the game because of that. I almost wonder, was it worth maybe trying to have McNulty punt? I know it's a little bit different, but he's got a leg, and if he would have booted it, maybe Kent State doesn't get that touchdown. Maybe once again, we're talking about a win instead of another loss.
Yeah, well, and also it was really windy, and both kickers during the kickoffs when they were kicking against the wind, they were either pooching it to the 30-yard line or they were squibbing the ball. But I saw a couple of those shank punts. They looked like dying quails.
Yeah, they really did. They were ducks. I mean, they were like quack. Like they just waddling in the air and just not. Yeah, yeah. It's so now once again, we're gonna have to ask you to put your coach hat on again, Coach Norm, because one more time, and you gotta have it figures, but you got one more game left, all or nothing, win or you go home. But now you're talking about 2 second half collapses. Last week when I asked you, you kind of said just let them think about what they did. Don't say a whole lot. Is that the same strategy you go with now, or what? What are you saying to your guys to be like? Because all they've heard for 3 weeks is bowl eligibility, and they can't keep closing the door. They keep letting the door back open. What would you say to your guys? Get them fired up against Akron.
Well, the main players I'd be aiming for are the seniors, and got to treat each game like it's their last one, whether you're the freshman or senior. And if you lose, there's no tomorrow, and it should make you a very dangerous team. But
Right.
who knows? Akron may be thinking the same way because they've been long at that point of no return. Cue the Kansas
Yeah.
song. But for you, be a win, and they're possibly in, but there's no guarantee tomorrow. If you blow it, there's no tomorrow. You gotta play the full 60, and you gotta play like you're a dangerous team. Play like you were on that 5-game winning streak. They looked amazing during it, and then I think they just got a little too far off, and they just fell off the face of the
Yeah.
earth.
And I think honestly, you know what I would be telling them, and we'll see if you agree with this, and then we'll just get to the Bills, is what I would be telling them is the exact same thing that the Akron head coach is probably saying to his team, which is go out there, get the win, kind of like you said, play like your last, but go out there and play the game that you love. Go out there, have fun, play like you got nothing to play for, because when this team gets tense and tight, when they're having fun in the first half, they look like one of the best teams in the MAC. But when they get tense and things start to go wrong, here comes the choking bulls. And all of a sudden they turn in from bulls that have ferocious horns to cows. So they need to go out there. I think I'd be telling them, just go out there and have fun, guys, and just leave it all out on the field.
Yeah, and the good thing is too, they do have a winning record in that division, so a win can get you the 500 record and a full winning percentage against the whole MAC division. And
Yep.
being 5-3 in that could possibly be an assist factor in getting a bowl game.
Yep, and get off the bowl eligibility. Finally, stop talking about it. And if nothing else, at least get a win to end the season. So for the second straight year, we're not talking about a long losing streak heading into next year, because that could not have felt good last year.
Yeah, you might as well switch your uniforms for the creamsicle ones, and they could be the $76.
Yeah, that was good. That was good, Norm. And on that, we're going to transition to the Bills here a little bit. And, obviously they played the Browns and the Lions, not world beaters. We understand that, but they got 2 wins in the span of 5 days. They're 8-3 now. And, the way, and you mentioned it, Miami, House of Horrors against Houston down the stretch in that game. I think everything that the Bills want to do, including the 1 seed, because I think Kansas City will lose at least 1 or 2 more times before the season ends. So basically everything you want to accomplish is still right in front of you, Norm, but they got to go out there and take it. And I give them credit through all the adversity of taking it these last 2 games.
Oh, yeah, and most teams that have the depleted injuries like the Bills have been going through all year, they would not even have half the wins that the Bills have been able to get. And what Dolphin fans and the Dolphin players need to realize is the only reason they're in first place is because of that divisional record. They barely squeaked by Buffalo. It was mainly poor play calling on Ken Dorsey's part and a 3-point loss versus the Jets. So those 2 games in the division, grand total differential, 5 points. They got New England coming up on Thursday, and they need to take it out on them. It's the first of 3 straight divisional games they have. They need to help themselves to improve this division. I would settle for a 500 record in it personally, but I would love to see 4 straight divisional wins. They're more than capable of winning out the season. And look, a couple years ago, for example, they gave up the Hail Murray with 2 seconds left, and they won out the rest of the regular season and made the playoffs. And then after the overtime loss to Brady and the Bucks next year, they were 7-6. They won their last 4, got to the playoffs, defeated New England at home until the 13 second lure. But with the game against Detroit, screw 13 seconds. I dub it 23 seconds.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you know what? Hey, who's counting? 13, 23. What matters is you won. And I think especially what they've had to go through, all the injuries, to be sitting here 8-3, that's pretty good and still very much in control of their own destiny. How impressed were you what they were able to do those 2 games in Detroit?
Well, the 2 games weren't exactly pretty. They got off the slow starts, but they were able to put it all together. And at the end of the day, no matter how pretty or how ugly it is, a win is a win. But I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to hitting Foxborough on the road and whip New England. Ever since Brady left, Allen has owned the Patriots. He's won 4 of the last 5 versus them. And Miami fans and the Miami Dolphins, they can get cocky all they want, but Allen's won 7 of 9 games versus them. He still owns the Dolphins. He's having a lot of that Dolphin fin soup, and Miami's going to find a way to mess it up because they're mismanaging Tua turn the ball over. I mean, Glass Manoa. I mean, Tagovailoa. And with New England, it's been a shifting between Mac Noodle Arm Jones and Bailey Zappa-Snack. Zappy.
All right, Norm.
You know what, the Jets would mess up a train wreck. Look how they lost versus New England. And yeah, Mike White had a great game, but the only time he played Buffalo, I should have been the number 1 pick. He threw 3 of them against Buffalo, and he got whipped 45-17. So Jet fans, don't relax. JETS, just end the season.
That's right. That's right. And it'd be awesome to take down the Patriots because I'm sick of that. They're the ones who started the BILLS. Boy, I love losing Super Bowls. They're the ones that kind of started that, and I'd
Yeah,
love
they
to
can say that all
destroy
they
it
want, but at least
tomorrow.
Buffalo didn't cheat to get them.
Yeah, you're right.
And
You're
for the
right.
acronym Patriots that we can throw back at them, paying all the refs in order to succeed.
Yep, that's right. I thought I remember you mentioning that acronym, but it's good to hear it again. It's so nice we had to hear it twice. So it's
You never hear it enough.
hey, you know what? I think if you're the Bills, you're right. You got plus. I think the other thing against Miami was it was very hot down there, and give the
Yeah, it
Dolphins a
was.
little credit for taking advantage of the fact they were playing in their own conditions. They're more used to the hot and the sun. I mean, no, did they look great
Yeah.
either? No, but they're a little more used to it. We need to do that same thing to them when they come here. Hopefully, Mother Nature will help us out and give us a little bit of snow, not to where they have to move the game or where we can't get out of our garage, but at least a little bit.
Yeah. And historically, whether being at Alabama or with the Dolphins, Tua has not done well in frozen tundra.
No.
And what Dolphin fans, another thing they didn't realize was when Buffalo was in that 90-degree weather, they held the ball and managed the clock perfectly. But that two big plays that Miami got, the main one, that long bomb to Waddle, that was the big deciding factor. And if Buffalo was able to counterattack the right way, they probably would have won the game because again, even though Miami beat them already once this year, Allen is still 7-2 versus them. That's the first time he had lost to Miami since the first time he played them, and that was when he was a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're that's a good point. And it's like a lot of people who say, well, the Chiefs have beaten Buffalo with Mahomes in Buffalo. I'm like, Josh
One
Allen
time.
wasn't the same. Yeah, and you got to remember, Josh Allen wasn't the same quarterback at that point. It's
Oh
not
no.
like it is now. So no, I kind of I have to overrule them and say sorry, Chiefs Kingdom. Sorry, Nick Wright. Don't give me that because it's not true. It wasn't the fair fight like it'd be this time. So hopefully the
Well,
Bills
at
can
least we can
still
make peace knowing that Allen has beaten Mahomes twice. It
yes,
wasn't in the playoffs. They were both on
right.
the road at Arrowhead.
That's
So
right.
Buffalo showed they can play the big dogs on their turf. One of the
Yeah.
big games, they beat the defending Super Bowl champions who are now looking
Oh yeah.
like an old man on a walker. That's how much they're falling apart. 3-8
Yep.
and going down to your third quarterback of the season who had his first career start against
Yep.
KC. So that was a bit of a gimme. And another factor is Mahomes' favorite target, Travis Kelce. He's not getting any younger. He's 34 years old. He's
No.
getting up there on age. Tyreek Hill's gone. He's
Yeah.
in Miami now. And I'll say, watching Buffalo pounce on him, even though they didn't win,
Yeah.
it was therapeutic. They got to do it
Oh, it
again in
was.
a couple of weeks.
It was. It
But
was great. I
when
admit it. It was a
Kelsey retires, or God forbid he gets hurt, who's he going to turn to? Juju
yeah.
Smith-Schuster? He mess
Yeah.
up a train wreck. He'd be dancing at midfield, then he'll take a hard
Yeah.
hit and knock himself out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, hey, take it easy there, Antonio Brown 2.0. It's just it's I mean, remember he's sitting there like doing like meditation. I'm like, what is that? Like that it was so stupid. I'm like, calm down, Juju. All right. You played for the Steelers who have been trashed the last couple of years. Let's not start acting like a big shot. But I mean, I think for the Bills, though, they're in good shape. And now, you know what? They get to have their division opponents. 3 of the 4 going to be back on our turf.
And the main goal for this, even though I would love to see a win out of it, they need to get at least 2 of those wins.
Yeah.
And I would love to see the 3-game sweep, but we can't ask for too much, obviously, because
Yeah.
Allen's not at 100%, but hopefully now that he's got some extra time to rest his elbow, he'll be able to do even better. In the last couple of games, he's done fairly well, with the exception of that red zone interception against Detroit.
Yeah.
And the running game was a big stepping stone when they played Cleveland there. They had nearly 200 rush yards as a team, and Allen threw for less than 200. But 2 big people that are back in Buffalo, Trey White, which is a
Yeah.
big plus, and Rousseau was fully practiced today. and it's
Yes.
highly possible he'll be back with Miller
That'll
out
help.
indefinitely. And they also picked up one of Allen's first favorite targets, John Brown.
The
I think they're
smoke.
going to activate him before Thursday.
Oh, me too. It sure seems that way. And I thank God. I mean, we still, hopefully, we're in the running for Odell Beckham, but you know what? At least it's good to see them add a receiver that still is good in his own right to add because, yeah, they really haven't had a whole lot of that. I mean, Hines has barely seen the field, which has really surprised me.
Well, he's done well in the punt returns.
Yes. But I mean, as far as like the offense, the carries, he really hasn't factored in too much with that, which surprises me. But I just think overcoming all these injuries. Remember, they've only had one practice the last couple of weeks, and now the flu is kicking around there again. But for all the things they had to go through to come out the other side of it and be 8-3, and we're close to being 9-2. I mean, that's gotta bode well for this team going forward. Unlike UB, who can't seem to handle adversity right now, the Bills have handled it in spades.
Yeah, and the bigger plus with them getting Brown back is he knows the organization, he knows the system. He had 1,000-yard season with them, and he
Yep.
was very productive when he was healthy. And with him back and Allen near 100%, I do believe they're going to be all right. And the defense has shown they've done well even without their star power. They didn't
Right.
have White for the first 10 games. Hyde's been out since week 2. His season obviously was done. Poyer's been battered up. Edmonds has been battered up. But they've got one of the strongest and deepest defensive benches in the league, and it showed. And one of the big things that they did was holding Nick Chubb to 19 yards rushing on 14 carries.
Yeah, for sure. And they remember what they did to Derrick Henry earlier, too. Yeah, I
14 for
mean,
25.
Jordan Phillips, the man with the stats, Norm. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Phillips, a lot of the guys they brought back, love that for the camaraderie, love that for the clubhouse. And I think that Phillips deserves a lot of credit for the way the run defense is played.
Oh, yeah, D tackles are supposed to be known to blow up the gaps and stop the run. They're not really super known for sacking the quarterback. And I'm sure that they missed Kyle Williams' ability to do that, but
yeah,
he's been long retired, had a great career with Buffalo, obviously, 6 Pro Bowls, so
yep. And
you gotta be able to fill the void sooner or later.
Yep, absolutely. So Norm, a lot of time has passed. Time flies when you're having fun.
Of course.
One more thing before we wrap this up, though. Want to give our Bullseye Nation viewers and listeners a little bit of a taste of what's coming up on your next podcast, my friend.
Well, yeah, once again, it's on 107.9 FM WRFA, and if you're not able to tune into it live, that's no problem. The radio station has a mobile app. It's on SoundCloud. They're both free to download, and it's mainly about Bills, Sabres, high school stuff around the local area for sports, among other things that do go on in the Jamestown area. And the next one, obviously, will be the quick recap of the second straight game against Detroit and the upcoming 3 divisional games. And it's not going to be easy, but Buffalo's got more than enough talent to do it. And I got to say, though, for Miami, their last games to close the season, they're not going to be as easy as the winning streak looks, because look at the teams they played during that streak. They played Pittsburgh, they played Detroit, they played Cleveland, they played Houston, and there was one other team, but I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
Cleveland, Houston. It hasn't been the toughest of competition.
Detroit was the other one, my bad.
Sure. Yeah, there we go. But they've been rolling along, but I think that they're in for a rude awakening. And I think the Bills' schedule is a lot easier because more of them are at home. I think they've gotten most of their tough schedule out of the way, and that's the benefits of it. So yeah, definitely go Bills.
Oh yeah, and I'm very happy that they got the harder parts of them out of the way. I would rather start that at the beginning of the season than at the end of it.
Absolutely, and it's starting good for us is very good, but it's also how you finish, and I think the Bills are in position to finish well. So
yeah, in the words of former Bills coach Marv Levy, when it's too tough for them, it's just right for us.
That's right. Where would you rather be? Anywhere but here right now. So On that note, Norm, good stuff. Thank you so much. And we look forward to talking to you again next week. And I pray that we're talking to you about a win and not UB season ending.
Go Bulls.
Absolutely. Norm, great stuff. Talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Norm is always on point with those Normisms. And again, gave us some great insight, some good analysis of a very disappointing and another blown UB lead. And I think it's official now. I could say I hate coin tosses because whether the Bills just can't win them or UB can't execute when they do win them, it just seems like Buffalo and coin tosses. They don't seem to work with Buffalo football. But again, some great stuff there from Norm. Now, as we like to do before we sign off, want to give you some scores and then preview the next opponent. But first, let's take you around the MAC East and the MAC. It was Miami, Ohio, taking down Ball State 18-17. Ohio officially wrapping up the MAC East with a 38-14 win over Bowling Green. Eastern Michigan defeating Central Michigan 38-19, doubling them up. It was Western Michigan over Toledo 20-14. And UB's next opponent, Akron, who went into that on a 9-game losing streak. Well, they didn't show it today. Go into Northern Illinois, smack around the Huskies, beat them 44-12. So as we talk about the Akron Zips, the next opponent, as that is the look around the MAC for today. For the Akron Zips, it has not been a good season for them. They won the first game they played. They've won their last game they've played. But the problem, in between those 9 games, all losses. So that pretty much sums it up right there. Akron 2-9. That was their first win against the conference opponent this season. And they have struggled. There is no way to sugarcoat it, folks. But the one thing, Akron now, they no longer have the pressure of the losing streak. So they can come out, they can play free, easy, relaxed. They know no matter what happens, they're going home after Friday's game. It's UB that has everything to play for. And as I said earlier in the open, if I was Coach Lindquist, I would have my guys look at it the same way. If you continue to look at the pressure mounting, all the games you've blown, they can make that all go away by playing well on Friday afternoon and coming out and beating an Akron Zips team that I still think is easily probably the worst team in this conference. But they have to go out and do it. They got to play a full 4 quarters, as you heard Norm say. They cannot just take their foot off the gas. And, you heard Brad say it earlier as well. It's almost like they think they're done when they're not really done. Well, they can't afford to have that happen anymore. They got to jump out, get to an early lead, which to UB's credit, they've been doing that. Jumping out and starting games has not been the issue, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. As again, Norm said, it's so true. And the way this team has been finishing games lately has been nothing short of horrific. And they really need to get that turned around. The good news is they win, they become bowl eligible. Everything to at least salvage this season, potentially get a bowl win, is still right in front of the UB Bulls, but they got to go out and take it. They can't expect Akron to just roll over and play dead for them. So for Akron, we gave you some stats. Obviously, they lost in consecutive weeks to 2 of the top 10 teams in the country, 2 of the top 5, and got blown out over that stretch in addition to that 9-game losing streak. So not a pretty season for them, but UB's got to make sure that it ends on an uglier note as they try to get themselves bowl eligible for the 4th consecutive week. Well, can they do it? Are we going to have that mystery guest on next week? Hope so, but we're not going to find out until after that game, and that's Friday, December 2nd at 1 o'clock. A reminder to all Bullseye Nation fans that are out there, those of you that had tickets, such as myself, to that UB Akron game that was previously scheduled for 2 weeks ago but got canceled due to the snow, they will honor the tickets for that game for this, because again, it's not anybody's fault, unfortunately, that we got hammered with the torrential snowstorm we did. So just wanted to pass that info to you. And with that, that's going to finish up this edition of Bullseye Nation. I am John Karuba. So again, next in action for the Bulls, they take on the Akron Zips Friday, December 2nd at 1 p.m. You can listen to the game live on WWKV 1520. Brad Riter, Scott Wilson will be along with the pregame show. Paul Peck will join as well, and they will have the coverage. And then on the kickoff, it'll be Paul Peck and Jim Kubiak on the call, and Bob Gong will host the postgame show again along with Brad Riter and Scott Wilson. So, for everybody here, I am John Karuba. One more time, your final score. It was Kent State in a thriller, but a heartbreaking loss for the UB Bulls. Kent State overcoming a 24-10 fourth quarter deficit with inside 7 minutes left to play. And it was Kent State who prevailed with the win in overtime, 30-27 over the UB Bulls. Thank you. As always, go UB Bulls, go. And we'll talk to you Friday, everybody. Good night on Bullseye Nation. Go Bulls!